To anyone tuned in, this is the Men, Church, Stuff podcast. It's the show where brothers-in-law DJ Culp and Brad Coleman talk about what it's like being Christian men in today's society. Having spent our entire lives immersed in church culture, we want to share our experiences with other men who are willing to listen. We'll talk life stuff, church stuff, man stuff, and, well, stuff. Let's get to it. Greetings, listeners here and there and everywhere, all across the land. This is the Men Church Stuff podcast. I am one of your hosts, DJ Culp. As always, here with my beloved brother-in-law, Brad Coleman. Brad, good morning, my friend.
Good morning.
My brother.
That's right.
Listeners, Brad and I had a big time heart to heart on Tuesday, and perhaps one day in the future you will find out. But Brad is quite the pastoral pastor. We were Brad and I were just kind of talking before the show how, let's just say that he and I would handle things very differently. I don't necessarily know if I'm the pastoral type.
What you need is for someone to tell you, just suck it up. Yeah. Like, everybody's got problems.
And that would be me. Yes. I'm your guy.
DJ is your guy. And I'm not to say that I don't get there sometimes, probably in a gentler way.
Yeah, right.
Like,
nope.
I'm probably not going to use those words and phrase, but DJ will. So, and sometimes, sometimes you need to go DJ.
That's right.
Well, I needed that reminder. Thank you.
Yeah. What I'll do is I'll have students ask me, how did I do? You know, if they'll do a performance or something, they'll ask me, how did I do? And I will ask them, do you want me to tell you, or do you want to feel better about yourself? Yeah. Because I need to know which answer to give you.
Like, this is Professor DJ, not your dad,
yeah,
right? You
know? Yeah. I don't think that you hung the moon. I don't think that every single flower you plant is going to come up roses. Okay. Yeah. But if you did great, I'll let you know. If you didn't, I'll let you know. So,
but I want that disclaimer out there first.
That's exactly
I'm going to be honest with you. It's probably the worst performance that you've ever had. I mean, did you sleep last night? Because
right. I'm not really
is not how that goes.
I'm not really fully convinced that you know this piece.
Yeah. Can I see your music? Because I don't think we were looking at the same thing.
Brad and I were originally going to record this show on Tuesday, and Brad, yesterday, I called my friend and asked him a couple questions. So we've got like the origin of our topic today. The origin. We've got the kind of the explanation. So, full disclosure, listeners, I've got a very dear friend of mine, Ben, who lives in Nashville, and Ben, shout out to you.
Hi, Ben.
Yeah, Brad says hi. Ben and I years ago were having a conversation. So Brad, I called him up, and Ben was, from what I remember, Ben was kind of like teeter-tottering in his assessment, if you will, of Christianity. At least that was kind of the perspective, the take, the understanding that I had on that conversation. So I called him up yesterday and said, hey man, me and Brad, we're doing this show. He knows that we have the podcast. It's not really, I don't necessarily think the podcast may necessarily be his style, but I said, one of the things that I've been wanting to do for a while, and I just haven't done anything about this, is I've really wanted to do a show on something that you told me.
Hmm.
And so telling about this conversation that we had, I mentioned to him something that always stuck with me was one of the reasons that he I don't want to use the word despised because I don't think that's right. But one of the things that he told me was that he always thought that Christianity was oppressive. And
Hmm.
before we did the show, um, Brad, I told you that I wanted to call him up because I didn't want to just try to fabricate stuff. And what's funny is that initially he said I kind of don't really remember that conversation, and he said I'm trying to think of what would have caused me to use that language. So throughout our conversation, it basically came out the foremost reason that he always saw Christianity as oppressive is basically legalism.
Hmm.
And so let's start here. First of all, Brad, do you think Christianity, and I guess we need to be specific if we're addressing a broad audience here, the Judeo-Christian, right?
Hmm.
Um, do you think Christianity is in itself oppressive?
Okay, so in itself oppressive.
Yeah,
Um, well,
because
let
that
me break
because
let me break my answer into two parts. Right.
yeah, right.
One is Christianity in itself oppressive. It can be. It
Hmm.
can be. Um, Oftentimes, though, it's because it's misused. But definitely, like when we look at Christianity as religion, even as following Christ, like those who are Christian can
Right.
be oppressive with their words, with their understandings. Now, is Christ oppressive? I think that's a very different,
That is a very different question. Yeah.
and I would say John, um, was it John 7, 36?
Hmm.
So if the Son makes you free, you'll be free indeed.
Right.
I think Jesus's purpose was when he comes, and I say this because that's what he said, um, that he came not to bring judgment, because basically he said, he who does believes not in the Son is judged already. Like we were already under judgment. She said, I didn't come to bring judgment, but I came to seek and save that which was lost. So the message of Christ, the message of the gospel is you are oppressed. You're already oppressed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so Christ wants to free you. But there are, like, again, I have people coming to me as a pastor who sometimes, and I think I said this maybe recently, you and me in a conversation, DJ. One of my favorite things about being a pastor is
Mhm.
when someone comes into me and they have been oppressed by a misunderstanding, right? They've been oppressed by a teaching that is not scriptural.
Hmm.
Um, and I really love it when they can point to the scripture that's been oppressing them. And I do some air quotes here.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
because of their
Listeners, you can't see that.
misunderstanding, or because because someone has taught them this is what this verse means. And I go, hey, that's great. Let's go look at the context of what that verse says. And let's peel out, okay, here is what they're saying, what others are saying.
Hmm.
But this here, let's read this whole context. Now, in the context of that scripture, most of the times if you do that, it's very evident that it's being misused. I mean, sometimes like I'd say a good percentage of the time, at least
Hmm.
over 50% of the time, if you go and read the context, you do not have to be a theologian to see that people are pulling that out of context.
Dude, no
Well,
doubt.
that's not what Jesus was saying at all.
Right.
But I love to do that. Again, I'm not using my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not even giving you my interpretation. we're going to go look at what Jesus actually said, what the Bible actually says, and then let's go from there. And
Yeah.
I love when the Bible, when we accurately read it, I love to watch that weight fall off of people
Mm-hmm.
because they were so bound by that idea.
Yeah.
It wasn't what God was saying that they needed. And so now the Pharisees were just, one, they were bound, but they just were notorious for, again, just binding up others and just
Yeah. So,
making that
yeah, but I want to interject
this is
here.
what God wants.
So I have I've always heard, and I think rightly so, because we're on the other side of the understanding of it. I've always heard the stories of Pharisaical law and the
Mhm.
enforcement of that law,
Mhm.
which in my personal opinion now can just simply be reinterpreted as what we understand as legalism.
Mhm.
Um, but I've always heard those stories as if the Pharisees were like maliciously bad guys.
Mhm.
And I mean, I'm not saying that they had pure hearts. I mean, whenever they went out set out to kill Jesus, I'm pretty sure that was something that they didn't probably. I'm guessing here they didn't like lay their heads on their pillows being very proud of themselves. I mean, I guess
Mhm.
that's possible, but the idea is that I've always heard the Pharisaical narrative as, well, they're the bad guys.
Mhm.
And I honestly think that in their day, they didn't see themselves as that.
No, they definitely didn't see
You
themselves
know,
as the
like I
bad
don't,
guys.
I definitely don't think that they saw, hey, Jesus really is the Messiah, and I do believe that, but
Mhm.
I can't believe that, and so therefore, let's just destroy the narrative, so I don't have to worry about it. You know?
Well, and I think what we have to acknowledge is that the Pharisees are a group of people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
They're a group of people. They're members of the Sanhedrin. You know, they're more of the working common class of people. The Sadducees were usually the higher class, Pharisees the lower.
Right.
Um, so you have a broad range, right? So oftentimes we're referring to them as one group.
Yeah.
Now, Jesus often refers to them because he's referring to the group as a whole. You
Mm-hmm.
know, unless your righteousness exceed the righteousness of the Pharisees. Um, I think he says in the Sadducees too. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
like then you won't enter the kingdom of heaven. But there's different, you know, because Nicodemus, who
Yeah.
comes to Jesus by night, is a Pharisee.
Yeah.
Um, so so you have again that range where there's some that are seeking, okay, is Jesus the Messiah? There's some that come to belief that Jesus is the Messiah, but it says, and this is, I think, one of the saddest verses, that they do not follow him because they were worried more about what man thinks and
Yeah.
losing their position and stuff
Yeah.
than about God. And then you have the others who are more like, okay, here's another example of a Pharisee, Saul of Tarsus.
Mm-hmm.
Saul of Tarsus, he's a tent maker, he's a Pharisee, he's very zealous. Now he's going to stomp out this Jesus movement because it's
Right.
against his God. And then his God goes, hey, no, you're the one that's pushing against your God or whom is supposed to be your God.
Right. Yeah.
So come, let me be your God for real, and you be my son instead
Yeah.
of just trying to do this. But so you have this range. So, I mean, yeah, it's a fair assessment that we can't just, they weren't Hitler,
Right.
right? Or at
Yeah.
least not all of them. I
Not
mean,
all
there
of them.
might have been some among them that were
And that's why I said I really do
right.
think that there were probably some that were malicious
You
in
probably
fact,
right,
but
and some that you probably would have loved. They probably like
absolutely.
give cookies out, like
I bet, and
before the
seriously, to your
service.
point, I bet Nicodemus was one of those guys.
Oh yeah,
But here's the
I love
thing. So
Nicodemus.
so coming back to the idea, like is Christianity oppressive, or does,
Mhm.
or maybe even better yet, how about not is it oppressive? Because I think we can make anything appear oppressive.
Mhm.
And when I say anything, like speed limits are oppressive. Like we could track that if we wanted to,
Yeah.
but um rather than is Christianity oppressive, how about maybe even a like spin the question a different way and ask, why do people, or why would someone see Christianity as oppressive? So again, the thing that Ben brought up first was the idea is that Christianity is basically the way that we use it is a bunch of do's and don'ts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is a very, very fair assessment. But
Yeah.
I want to say this real quick because I think there's a lot to unpack, and at the same time, maybe not so. Excuse me. With that, if there's any part of Scripture relating to Christ's call that would seem oppressive, not how do we manipulate a religious system, but rather what about Christ's call to salvation could be seen as oppressive. I would argue that Luke 9:23 could be viewed as oppressive. And then he said to them all, Jesus speaking here, if anyone wants to come with me, he must deny himself, take up his cross daily and follow me. I would argue, and Brad, as you were mentioning, like the narrative of Christianity is in fact that we already are oppressed. Sin puts us like we are birthed into spiritual oppression.
What
But
was that verse reference again? Sorry.
Luke 9:23.
Okay, go ahead.
But if in fact we are born into oppression,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to invoke Plato's allegory of the cave and say that because we're born into oppression, we have no idea that we are oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And like I don't know, Brad, if you're familiar with Plato's allegory, but like he sets up this entire scene where people are born basically into bondage and they see shadows on the cave and they assume that these shadows are their god. They don't know that they're in a cave and they actually have no idea how close to the mouth of the cave that in fact that they are.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's their reality, they just accept their reality as reality, and there it is. And so I would argue that Jesus's call of take up your cross daily, deny yourself, that is seen as an oppressive notion
Mm-hmm.
to a world that is not convinced that they're oppressed to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
would, and so I
Yeah,
would
I mean,
argue.
if you were right, yeah, go ahead. You argue.
I was just going to say, I would argue that it would be very easy to view Christianity as oppressive because we are called to deny us, and the world pushes the individual. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Satan's narrative to Eve was not her communion with God, nor was it her spousal relationship with Adam. It was just her as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where
Yeah.
I see Christianity in a very logical and feasible way of being viewed as oppressive in its own nature.
Yeah.
If oppressive is a correct word in that tense. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
So again, looking at the context, right? And he's saying to them all, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me.
Mm-hmm.
For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake, he is the one who will save it. For what is a man profited if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself?
Mm-hmm.
And it goes on in the context. Well, let's just finish up the last two that are in red here. For whoever's ashamed of me and my words, Son of Man will be ashamed of him when he comes in his glory, and the glory of the Father and of the holy angels. But I say to you truthfully, there are some of those standing here who will not taste death until they see the kingdom of God. Of course, he's talking about himself. He's talking about how he's going to pay the price, and he's making the way into the kingdom. There's so much there. But let me point this out, right? Because I hear so many Christians, and I have been one of them, misuse, in my opinion, that verse, that very verse that you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
in a way to sometimes almost make the argument oppress themselves.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because when stuff that they're struggling with, or whatever, or cancer, or a kid with a disability, that's just my cross to bear. I'm not going to say that they're 100% wrong there. I think again, the cross is not good, favorable, like, oh, yay, kind of thing, like I'm going to
Right.
be crucified. But think about what the cross, right? So what did the Romans do? They would have them carry their cross through the streets and up to the place of crucifixion. And often, as with Jesus, right, they would put their crime on that.
Hmm. Yeah.
This is,
Like
he's a
as
murderer.
a public
Right,
disclaimer, this is why they're
right,
getting
right.
crucified. Sure.
It's a banner,
Yeah.
if you will, that's being carried so that you are identified with what your crime is. Now, what did Pilate put on Jesus's?
King of the Jews.
King of the Jews. That's what he was guilty of. I love it. That's a God thing, right? The Jews didn't
Yeah.
like that because they're like, well, you say he said he was king of the Jews, and Pilate goes, I wrote what I wrote.
Yeah.
I said what I said.
Yeah. What you can do? Yeah.
And it's like in 2 or 3 different languages there, right?
Yeah.
So Jesus is bearing his cross, which is saying, I am king of the Jews. And he's carrying it, and he's going to go and he's going to be crucified on it.
Yeah.
And he carries it to the point where he can't carry it anymore, right? And they have to get somebody else to carry it. So part of the picture, I think, of us carrying our cross is, are we identified with Jesus,
Hmm.
even when it is to our, people looking down on us? Oh, you're one of those?
Right. Yeah.
You're and the stuff that goes with it. But I think part of it is just that I'm dying to myself, but I'm picking up the banner that I belong to Christ.
Hmm.
I belong to Christ. And to me, that's the cross. That's the biggest part. Not these struggles. I mean, and they may be tied in there, but it's like, oh, I got a lame foot. That's just my cross to bear. No, because that's not defining
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's what's the
In
sign on your cross say?
in Galatians 6:5,
Hmm.
he like so Galatians 6:2 is one of my life verses. Carry one another, brothers, carry one another's burdens, therefore fulfilling the law of Christ. But he finishes out that paragraph
Hmm.
with, for each person will have to carry his own load. Now,
Hmm.
it may sound like as if those two verses are contradicting each other, but what he says in the middle there is basically, yeah, share your burden with others, but you also, as you were mentioning, like if I have the lame foot and that's my cross to bear, I mean, it's not your identity, but yeah, I mean, you do have to figure out how to deal with that, whether God relieves you of it or not.
Hmm.
But I really think that in its essence, when we think about what is it that I want to do, who is it that I want to be, what is it that I want to have, versus God, I am willing or unwilling, but I'm curious even, right? Not necessarily a black or white category here, but I'm willing to set that down for your plan for my life, whatever that may be,
Hmm.
as opposed to I don't want to carry my own cross, because if my own cross is not the cross that you want me to carry, right?
Hmm.
If my life goal or my life plan heads me in another direction because I'm following you, I don't want that.
Hmm.
Again, I see that, or I could perceive the world seeing that
Hmm.
as a source of saying that Christianity can be oppressive in that sense.
Hmm.
But what? Go ahead, Brad. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just thinking about this, and I was like, if we were to like poll people, right, and
Yeah,
invite, and we were
that'd
like,
be fun.
who are the most, who feels like who would say that they're the most oppressed,
Ah,
right? And I'm just thinking,
yeah.
and I'm like, I bet those people would be one, under 18 years old. And I'd say there would be a deeper a bigger amount of them who were probably between like 12 and 16.
Yeah. See, that's not where I thought you were going.
I am being oppressed.
Being oppressed.
Because boundaries,
Yeah.
healthy boundaries,
Right.
when you don't want them,
yeah,
feel like oppression.
Yeah.
But they're not oppression. You know, oppression is hurtful. Oppression is unjust.
Yeah.
Right. But so to a world where God has set these rules and they go, I don't want to live in those rules, then that can feel like oppression.
Yeah.
Now, so in that sense, I'm going to say God is not oppressive. However, in my experience with the church, and I'm talking just the church, okay? Baptists, Pentecostals, and Methodists, Presbyterian, the list goes on. We're talking about people who they're part of the church. And these different denominations, we've all had ways, and sometimes have ways, that we have to combat about because we are being oppressive.
Mm-hmm.
We're making the message of Christ oppressive. Now, I tend to pick more on Southern Baptist because that is one.
Yeah, I is too.
You know, and I think about sometimes when they went to Hawaii, and a couple of the first mission trips, like that the Southern Baptists took as a convention, were to Hawaii, and like suffering for Jesus.
Oh yeah, we've talked about this on the show. Yeah,
we did, but they, so they were preaching the gospel, they were in the gospel, and people were getting saved. They're starting on the beaches. But what did they do? Well, then they told those women, oh, you can't be wearing those hula skirts, you can't be wearing those things because you've got to be modest and godly. And what happened was the message of the gospel,
like me,
right,
yeah,
right. Well, my idea. That's exactly modesty
right.
and all this,
right.
And so, right, you got to look like me, and so it hindered then the spread of the gospel deeper in, because what did people see? Well, when I come to Jesus, I've got to give up who I am. Now, on some level, we're going to say yes, but that's not the level that was happening.
That's
here.
Exactly right. And that is the source. That is like what Luke 9:23 is all about. Yeah, you do have to give up yourself, but
the beautiful thing,
it is.
You give this is I've said this many times, and I think I'm going to keep saying it, and as long as I'm breathing. The more that I lose myself in Christ, the more I lay myself down to Christ, the more that I find who I am, because I'm trading my ideas of who Brad Coleman is.
Yeah.
For God's truth of who he made me to be.
Yeah.
This is who I made you to be. This is what I made you for. These are the things that I've called you to do.
Right.
And you are mine. And so the more I lose myself, the more of myself I gain. It's one of, I think, the great paradoxes of God. And I've got a good friend, Matthew, who said God loves a paradox. And I don't think he's wrong.
No.
I mean, it's like, oh, well, if you lose yourself, you'll find it. You'll find yourself. You lose your life, you're actually going to save your life, which is the opposite of losing your life.
So is it like, I guess it's kind of like in parallel to, Pirates of the Caribbean. What is it at World's End, where you have to get lost to get to Davy Jones' locker, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and so much of that too, again, I think is what that scripture is talking about, taking up our cross.
Not Davy Jones' locker listeners.
Yeah. I was telling you, let me be honest. And sometimes I don't like it. It's vulnerable, right? Because I'm a pastor, which means I've got it all right and I understand everything. Everything goes great for me, except for
that's exactly right. Yeah, right.
It sure doesn't.
Brad, I wish I was you, man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not a pastor.
And let me just say this: as I am sharing, kind of, trying to bring out what that verse is saying.
Yeah.
and about laying down, like God is bringing things to mind of ways that I have not been doing that and
Yep.
convicting my heart of, so if that's your cross, to lay down yourself and to pick up me
Right.
and be
Yeah.
identified with me, then why are you hesitant to do that in certain situations, in certain scenarios? And it's like, oh, it hurts so good. I don't know if that's ever
Yeah.
been your experience, but it's like it does.
So
When God hits you with those things, it hurts so good. It's like, I needed that. I didn't want that.
my experience with that
Not
is
during the
that
podcast, God.
yeah, it depends on, you say it hurts so good. It depends on what it is.
Mhm.
Depends on how much I want to keep it.
Yeah.
Depends on how much I love
Mhm.
not doing Jesus's way.
Mhm.
Because I mean, sure, there are things in my life and like I get snarky real fast. I think it's funny. I love it.
Mm.
But I have also in the last 3 or 4 months come to the realization of, DJ, your snide comments and using words like crap, sucks. It's it's almost like
This was a family show.
like, yeah, right, disrespectful. It is kind of disrespectful, and I love having like this disrespectful undertone and almost like making fun of like a formal situation. But the more that I am growing as a parent, the
Mhm.
more I'm realizing I need to check myself. And every time that God reminds, or that the Spirit reminds me of this, I'm like,
So,
it
so,
doesn't hurt so good. You know what I mean? Because
so the more that
I
you're
like that.
growing as a parent, the more apparent it is
Yeah.
that you,
The
well,
more apparent. Wow, wow.
so, and in full disclosure, um, some of the things that I've been praying about,
Mm-hmm.
so in a way, as part of God's answer to some of my prayers, it's another piece of some of the things that I'd already been kind of struggling through.
Mm.
And so that's why it hurts so good. It's like, again, we were talking last week, and I know that we didn't share this with you, but your sister's lupus diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
right? She handled it very well because it made things make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, so it
Brad,
was
this is
for
so funny
her.
to me, man.
For her, it was like it hurt so good,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh yeah, this sucks, but at least now I know. At least I
Right.
got a name for it. But I totally, yeah. There's definitely times when I'm like, I'm no, I wasn't asking God for that answer. I wasn't.
That's right.
No, I didn't want. No, I didn't want you to ask me what was behind that door.
Right.
Why is it locked?
So I need to clarify something. Listeners, I am not laughing at my sister's diagnosis. The story that Brad is illuminating and that I did not know is that Tabitha was at peace. She was calm. She was almost
Yeah,
grateful that she finally, as Brad said, she
yeah,
finally had a name for it. Brad was the one freaking out,
yep,
and Tabitha had to console him, but she's the
yeah.
one who had lupus.
I said to her, something along the lines of, I need you to freak out a little more so that I can be okay. Because
Please make
that's
me
my
feel better.
job, right? I am like, it's okay, we're gonna get through this. And like, my brain's already planning
That's
all this
so
stuff.
funny.
And then she's like, oh, this makes so much sense. And it's like, oh, and I'm like, no, no,
No,
no,
no,
no, that
no.
is not how you're supposed to respond.
Oh, I love it, man. That's so good.
But again, that is so many times
Yeah.
it is when Christianity is oppressive.
Yeah.
Like truly, it is because we've got man's opinion,
Yes.
what man has interpreted, misinterpreted,
Right.
and he's putting this weight on. Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest for your soul."
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Period.
because
Yeah.
well, and it goes on to say that his yoke is easy. Come and learn from me, because my yoke is easy
Right.
and my burden light. Right. So if your Christianity is oppressive, Now, we're not talking about I said the truth and people are crying it's oppressive, right? But if your Christianity is oppressive, then you're doing it wrong. Right? If your Christianity, now sometimes we get burdened, right? Definitely. But sometimes we have heavy burdens.
Mm-hmm.
But God is in the business of taking the weight of those heavy burdens. He's in the business of breaking chains. Right? Well, but they called themselves slaves of Christ. Yeah, because he's a good master.
Yeah. Now,
Like, and this is what I thought about. Like, so can I bring out like this? This is crazy. It's how my mind works.
go ahead.
But many years ago, I was struggling with that verse. Like, and about, well, I was bound to sin,
Mm-hmm.
which was drowning and killing me, but now I'm bound to Christ.
Yeah.
And then I thought about, like, if I was climbing a mountain, I can climb hills, but if I was climbing a mountain where you got to like nail stuff in and you got to be tethered off because, one false step and you just fall to your death.
Yeah. Right.
I'm like, there's a reason I don't do that kind of stuff
because
because I tend
because
to
I
make
would fall to my
false steps.
death. Yeah. Right.
But I was thinking, if I was ever going to do that, I would want to be tethered to like the strongest guy. Like, oh no, this guy knows how to climb a mountain.
That's exactly right.
He
Yeah.
knows exactly where to put this. And I was like, wow, I'm tethered to Christ, who will not fall, who will not
Right.
drop me, and who is not oppressive in the fact that he is my master.
Yeah.
And so,
Oh,
yeah,
well,
no, yoke me up to that, baby.
so from that perspective, I also and before I say anything, the majority of testimonies of like living life in the realm of atheism that I've ever heard,
Mhm.
and I'm going to do this on our own podcast. Listeners, I would encourage you go check out a podcast by Jana Harmon. It's called Side B Podcasts. Side B Podcasts, fantastic show. Um, even though I'm promoting another show on our show.
Mm.
What she does is she exclusively interviews former atheists that have come to Christ.
Mm.
That's the whole show. And what I have heard, Brad, to the idea of what you were saying, I want to be tethered to Christ.
Mm.
He will not fall. I think another way that skeptics, anyways, could view Christianity as oppressive is there is a constant narrative of I am going to fail. Not I might, but I will. And again, kind of thinking about Plato's allegory as just such a poignant way of creating imagery of what being born in bondage to sin really does look like.
Mm-hmm.
If you are unaware that you are chained and everyone is saying you are chained, but you don't believe them, I can understand why the narrative of Brad, you're fooling yourself, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're following this Jesus person who says he's not going to fall. Well, who's to say you won't fall? You know what I mean? Because if they are not in, or if the idea has not sunk in that in fact I am broken no matter which way I spin it. And the beauty of all of that, Paul writes in Romans 5:8, but God proves his own love for us, then while we were still sinners, Christ died for us, right? And I think that's the beauty of the freeing nature of salvation, is that he did it while we had no idea we were in bondage to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So another aspect, kind of shift our conversation just a little bit here, Brad. Another aspect that Ben mentioned was basically, if you will, and you and I have kind of been dancing around it during our time talking to each other, is the way that people wrongly enforce the do's and don'ts, and the actual message of Christ gets lost. And I think and to quote Ben, or loosely quote Ben, there are more facets and sects of Christianity than there are pretty much any other religion.
Mhm.
I actually don't know the truth of that statement, but I certainly get what
Yeah.
he's getting at. You know, like,
Yeah.
I mean, how many different versions of Baptist are there? Come on.
I always say we're like Baskin Robbins.
We are like Baskin.
Baptists are like Baskin Robbins.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But the idea is that, first of all, why? I don't want to unpack that, not by any stretch of the imagination. But
In like 5 minutes,
yeah, no way. But here's the thing. Everyone has, even people in a single church, everybody there has their own spin, has their own kind of idea as to what Christianity means and Christianity is. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff, as you were mentioning, you know, Southern Baptists. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that I do disagree with the Southern Baptist Convention, but that's not going to actually make me leave the church to go find somewhere else.
There goes their support of our show.
Yeah, right. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, right. Yeah. But I know that if I sit in any other church, I'm going to sit there going, yeah, I don't disagree. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. So, like, you know, what's going to make me happy? And I think what we have to accept is that people in general are stupid. And because people are stupid, no matter how you spin it, no matter how much trust you have in any one individual, we have to keep going back to Christ.
To Jesus.
We have to go back to Jesus.
Because
he's the only one that wasn't stupid. Like,
right.
Everybody else is.
Christ alone. Right? Faith in Christ alone.
And see, that's where I think my snarkiness does give me a little edge, you know?
we Jesus plus nothing minus nothing. You cannot add to the gospel. And that's what we as humanity try to do. And I do think that there's a lot of times we're trying to do it not in a bad heart.
Right.
But
dude, that right there, I think is the hardest area to untangle.
Well, and let me say this about the Pharisees, and let me see if I can say this quick. All right. Yeah. God gives his law. Right. And I heard somebody explain it like this. God gives his law. He's like, for example, all right, don't go into this hole. And so the first generation went back like a few feet from the hole and built a fence so that people wouldn't accidentally fall into the hole. Oh, God said, don't go in this hole, so we're going to put up a barrier. Well, then the next generation was so ingrained with that they went a few feet back from the other fence and they built another fence. Because their parents were saying, don't go near the fence. But the reason was so you don't go into the hole. Right. And we keep going back and back, generation, and we get like, we're so acclimated with the rules that we don't even remember what the original purpose of God was, which was don't go in the hole.
Yeah, just don't go in the hole.
You don't need to be 3 miles back. Just don't go in the hole.
Right.
You know, and so the Pharisees, like Jesus tells them, so Matthew 23:23, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you tithe mint and dill and cumin and have neglected the weightier provisions of the law, justice and mercy and faithfulness. But these are the things you should have done without neglecting the others.
Yeah.
You blind guides who strain an ant and swallow a camel. Jesus didn't say, oh, you shouldn't be tithing your mint. Like he's not like, but he's like, you've made the law about you checking the boxes and following the rules.
Right.
You've missed essentially you've missed the heart of God.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't heal on the Sabbath. And let me tell you what, I don't like confrontation. I will have confrontation when I need it. I don't thrive on it. It drains me. I don't go looking for it. If I'm honest, I probably avoid it sometimes more than I ought to. But Jesus was not afraid of confrontation.
Nope.
Do not think that the guy with the withered hand at the party or on the Sabbath at the Pharisee's house was an accident that Jesus healed him there. I mean, he is calling them out on this thing. He's calling them out on their being oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone is healed on the Sabbath and your heart is, I can't believe it happened on this day, then you need to adjust your heart.
That's right.
Well, so let me put this more into like an example. If someone comes to Jesus because somebody goes in at a bar and shares Christ with them, his salvation is no less than if he walked up the altar at a Southern Baptist church or whoever's church.
That's right.
I got
exactly right, dude.
I got the beautiful just privilege of walking through with an 82-year-old man who accepted Christ a handful of Sundays ago.
Oh my gosh, dude, that's so awesome.
And wife been praying for him for 42 years. Yeah, amazing. Been coming to church for almost a year, and yeah, just came up after church because he went and like, you know, the invitation had ended and all this, people were leaving, and his wife motioned me, and I go back and he says, is it too late? And I'm like, is it too, well, first I'm like, is
too late to what?
Too late for what?
Yeah, right.
Because I'm dense. Like, is it too late for what? His wife was like, he wants to get saved. Oh, okay. Now I'm here. Now I'm back. Like, no. I'm like, come on up here. I'm gonna grab my Bible. Let's look at some stuff. But I was like, dude, you don't even need me.
No, you don't need me. That's exactly right. What do you need me to do? That's exactly right.
But I got good news for you. It's not too late. Like, you're right on time. You are right on time. Let's go through Romans, you know, and
that's hilarious.
But it's a beautiful thing. I think it's a beautiful just picture of God's sense of humor, but also God's reminder, sometimes through a sense of humor, of one, don't take yourself too seriously, and two, like, I love it. And I love I said, man, he's 82 years old and he's a newborn.
Yeah.
Great. But he's coming as this little child faith and going, did I wait too late?
Yeah.
Like, no, dude, you don't need to wait till next Sunday.
No.
It's just,
well,
so it's beautiful.
Tell you what, Brad, why don't we just draw this one to a close?
Yep.
And Ben, I hope that we certainly hope that we did, you know, honest and integral. I don't know how to use the word integrity in like a present tense, but I hope we gave integrity and honesty to, you know, to kind of your points in our conversation. And thank you so much, Ben. You know, as we talked yesterday, I just really appreciated the candid nature. And Ben and I, we go back to college, and I mean, we've always been very forthcoming up front with each other. And that's one of the things that I love about talking to people about, you know, religious and Christian principles, you know, like Ben, like you, just being able to have very candid conversation, you know, not afraid to step on each other's toes, not afraid to ask questions or to disagree or to, you know, just kind of hash things out.
Yep.
But I definitely think that we should continue this conversation in the future, because there were a few other things that Ben mentioned. But at the same time, I mean, if listeners, if you were hoping that we were going to come to a very concrete resolution, then
I haven't listened to the show very long.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Then I'll say this is Christianity Oppressive. Jesus is not. No, but like the way that man blurs those lines.
Yep.
That's our fault. So, but listeners, as always, we really do love that you love our show. Hey, if you're still listening, rate our show. We need more ratings. Let's get the show out. And you know, if it's something that you believe in, if it's something that you know, that you feel like is inspiring, if it's something that you enjoy listening to, if it's funny, whatever the case is, rate the show, share the show. Brad and I, as always, we love doing this. This really is just a great time for me and Brad to be able to sit down and hang out, because we don't get to do it very often, at least in person. So You can follow us on our Facebook group and on Instagram. But contact us. Like, shoot us some Instagram or Facebook messages. Let us know what you think about the show. Have some questions for us, topics that you want us to cover. But beyond that, Brad, I love you, buddy.
Love you too. Love you guys.
Listeners, we love you, and we will catch you next time.